Can a six-figure salary still buy you the American dream in the United States today? Well, today I'm going to break down a two-part reaction video where I go through this video from CNBC on why $100,000 can no longer do that, and it's really interesting what's happening in today's economy. Let's dive in.
More than half of Americans say they would need at least $100,000 a year to be financially comfortable.
The benchmark of a six-figure salary used to be the gold standard income. It represented the tipping point of finally earning a disposable income and building a savings, spending based on your wants, not just your needs.
The American dream.
I think the hardest thing for me with inflation is just mentally adjusting. It wasn't that long ago for all of us that we were used to one set of prices and one set of income and one set of standards, and that all shifted pretty radically in the last couple of years. That's what's most interesting to me about living through a period of inflation. We always heard about this growing up, like in the 70s, the 80s, and now to actually be able to see it and experience it and be a part of it, it is really weird to make that shift, to think that six figures is what half of America needs just to survive.
Dream is what makes a middle-class lifestyle. You're able to pay your bills, you're able to put food on the table, put a roof over your family's head, and you have some additional savings.
Now, people making well over six figures are still living paycheck to paycheck. What used to symbolize financial freedom is now keeping people stressed about making ends meet.
26%.
A lot of the data we're seeing right now is showing that more and more people on a six-figure income are actually living paycheck to paycheck. That's consistent with every news outlet that I'm following. So that's kind of concerning that, these wages are not increasing as the cost of goods are increasing. And that's the scary thing about inflation. And that's what concerns me for people entering retirement, is you're getting ready to be on a fixed income. How do we make sure that there's a way to make sure that income is going to still buy you the same standard of living 10 years from now?
6% say they would need more. A salary in the range of $100,000 to $149,000 per year would make them feel financially comfortable.
I think unfortunately what has happened is that wages haven't kept up with the cost of living by and large for the last 50 years or so. And so it becomes increasingly hard for many families to be able to attain.
50 years of inflation and wages have not caught up. Here's some crazy information. So the average house in America right now costs about $307,000, which is insane. The average mortgage rate is about 7%, and the average mortgage payment is about $28.83 per month. So if you think about it, hang on, this is crazy too. Let's add in average cost of medical insurance for a family of four is right around $14.37 a month. If you take that on an annual basis, that's almost 20 grand a year, $17,244 a year for a family of four just to pay for their medical bills. So you think about it, if you're making 100 grand, and that's 100 grand as a W-2 employee. So let's say you're making you have 22% tax or whatever. And again, the tax brackets are gradual, but let's just say it's after-tax income. I mean, that's a large portion of your income right there just to cover your medical costs now. You add the mortgage in, that's basically half your income. I mean, after taxes, that's just hard to do. And then what else is crazy is the average monthly cost for groceries is a little over $1,300 a month. So, I mean, you add those three things together, and yeah, this makes sense why most Americans say they need more than 100 grand just to make ends meet.
That sort of middle-class lifestyle, that American dream.
How much you need to feel financially secure varies so much depending on not only your geographical location, but of course your lifestyle. It used to be that a six-figure salary was like the gold standard, but nowadays that may not be enough to make ends meet in certain parts of the country, especially like New York or San Francisco, where it costs so much more just to cover your daily expenses.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about some cities now have a tax rate. Some states have a tax rate as high as 50% when you add everything all together. So some of these cities are outrageously expensive to live in. So if you lived in a major metropolitan area, yeah, you have to have at least, a lot more than that to be able to just...
Here's why a $100,000 household income no longer buys the American dream. Go Banking Rates analyzed how much a family of 2 adults and 2 children would need in each state to own a home, a car, and a pet, as well as have an additional 20% of their income for savings and 30% for discretionary spending.
The core of what the American dream means is some amount of economic security, that you feel like you can get by and do a bit better. Maybe do better than your parents, maybe be able to afford a house, certainly be able to save for your children's future.
All 50 states require more than a $100,000 annual income, with 38 states needing more than $140,000.
Holy cow. So they're saying if you want to spend 50% just to survive, 20% to save, which I encourage saving 40%. Some people say, Dave Ramsey says save 15%. Some people say save 10%. I think saving 40% is really going to be the only way to build wealth a lot faster and save it. But, that's just my personal opinion on that. But they're saying, okay, 50% on living expenses, 20% on savings, and 30% on discretionary. Every state requires more than 100 grand. And a lot of these states like California, New York, New Jersey, Washington State require more than 200 grand to be able to do that, which is insane. Arizona, where I'm at, requires between 160 and 200 grand just to have 50% of your money be spent on the things you need to survive, 20% for savings, 30% for discretionary, you got to be making, about 200 grand. That's just crazy.
The most affordable states, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Kentucky, need between $109,000 and $117,000. The median income for a household of 4 people in each of those states in 2022 was between $71,000 and $87,000. Hawaii, California, and Massachusetts.
Holy cow. So before we get on to the more expensive states, just in the cheapest states they named, the income gap between the median income and what's required to survive at that level of standard was off by $30,000 or 30%. That's just absolutely insane.
And Massachusetts are the most expensive. Each requires an annual income of more than $240,000. The median income for a family of 4 in those 3 states in 2022 fell at least $94,000 short of what's required for the American dream.
Oh my gosh, almost half. So that means that you need $250 just to live for a family of 4 in Hawaii, California, or Massachusetts, and the median income was right around $125 in Hawaii, $111 in California, and $148. No wonder. I mean, it's just crazy how much how off that is from what they need, and that's just a proof. That's proof that inflation has outpaced wage growth in this country.
Dream. A different analysis from EPI found that in about 80% of the country, a family of 4 can afford their basic needs on less than $100,000 per year. Those include things such as housing, food, transportation, healthcare, childcare, taxes, and a few other basic necessities.
It doesn't take into account anything extra. It's really just putting food on the table, putting a roof over your head, getting healthcare for your family. So you're not saving for a rainy day if something happens to somebody or if they lose their job. So there's no extra in there for retirement, for kids' college. Those are the kinds of things that many people want to save for. Those are the many things that people consider a part of the American dream.
It's crazy. So they said that in every state you could probably survive on the basics for under 100 grand. But again, that takes away the discretionary spending, that takes away all of the savings. So no wonder why people are struggling to get their kids through college and then also retirement, right? Those are 2 things that really require you to save diligently early on. So if you're just trying to make it as a family of 4, it's very difficult to be able to put enough away to build a meaningful nest egg for a lot of people if you're not, in one of those states or able to make that much income.
Only about 3% of those counties have a median income higher than the basic cost of living.
The idea behind the American dream hasn't really changed.
3% of counties in the United States have an average median income that's higher than their average standard cost of living. That is insane. That's absolutely crazy.
Even though lifestyles have. It used to be that you could get out of school, get a job, buy a home, and start a family, and now those milestones are harder to achieve.
So my question is, what is the American dream going to shift to, right? You have this new generation that is coming up that is, still wants to buy homes, but is really stuck renting for much longer than they intended to. There's a lot of talk that America is going to become a renter's nation. I mean, I wonder what the American dream is going to shift to. What are, younger, Gen Z people saying about, what they're going to do with their lifestyle and how they're going to raise their household. What's their version of the American dream? I'm curious to know, what that's going to shift to, because, I mean, clearly the numbers show that this is something that's got to get corrected, or we need to make some massive changes.
It used to be that a high school degree, you're good to go. You could get a great job building cars or something and be right in the middle class off of a high school degree. But now, in order to get in the middle class, a high school degree is clearly not enough, right? Now, you gotta pay for college.
People are graduating with much larger student loan balances, and then it's harder to be on that same sort of career trajectory that would provide the stability that you maybe would have had a generation ago to save up for the down payment on a home.
Student loans are insane. A lot of people are graduating college with a mortgage. They don't even have a house. And so the student loan debt can be crippling. It stays with you for years. It's very difficult. I know they just passed a bill to have some forgiveness, but it's absolutely crazy because the cost of tuition is skyrocketing as well. And people think, hey, we have to get a good degree so we can get a good job to be able to afford all these things. And it's tough.
Student loan debt reached an all-time high of $1.77 trillion in the first quarter of 2023. This can have a ripple effect, especially when entire generations are starting their adulthoods with thousands of dollars in debt.
So when you think about the kinds of investments you want to make for your children, the cost of college has gone up a lot faster than overall inflation. So trying to make those investments on a smaller and smaller paycheck compared to the cost of living can be very difficult and almost impossible. And so
I had a great interview with my friend Monica Felton. She's a college planning expert. If you haven't seen that video, pause and go check that out right here. I hope you're enjoying part 1 of this. Obviously, college has become a huge problem. Inflation is much, much higher. I talked about that in that video over there. If you want more information on it, please go check it out and stay tuned for my part 2 of this, because we're going to break down what's happening with the United States with inflation, what's happening with our cost of living, what's happening to our idea of the American dream, and what that looks like for retirement.